Hi, I'm Keith Norris, and this is the 5 building blocks of culture. Why culture, you ask? Well, culture is one of those words that a lot of us have a general idea as to what it is. We all kind of have this mental picture as to what culture is, but there seems to be a lot of difference in terms of what exactly it is. Now, there is some agreement in the executive community in terms of companies and how important culture is. Culture is very important to the success of your organization. So this is a recent study from Booz and Company that talks about the importance of culture inside the organization, more important than strategy or operating plan. A lot of people are mentioning that it's not being effectively managed, but it is something that's on the leadership agenda. Why culture? The right culture can fix a bad strategy or a bad operating plan. The wrong culture can kill a good strategy or a good operating plan. If you are trying to grow or scale a company, culture is one of the most important things that you can get right. You might have heard this quote from Peter Drucker, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." We're going to dispel a couple of culture myths here. Now, culture is not mystical, it's not magical. Now, sometimes when you get culture right, it feels really lucky, and there is an element of luck to it, I suppose, but it's not just luck. You can create good culture. You must take responsibility for the company culture. Everyone owns the culture. This is an important one. Everyone in the organization needs to feel a responsibility and ownership for the culture. Culture, in a lot of ways, is kind of like flying an airplane. If you get in an airplane and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to look at that cluster, that instrument cluster, and it's going to be scary and it's going to be confusing, and you're going to feel like, man, this is a little overwhelming. Well, creating a good culture, if you understand the right elements, the right building blocks, is a lot like flying an airplane. You can expect to have great takeoffs, a good in-flight movie, or maybe a good meal, and maybe a very smooth landing if you know the right levers to push and pull. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is the right levers to push and pull to have a smooth flight with your company culture. Building block number 1 is what we're going to refer to as shared values. Now, there's a lot of talk about mission statements and company values, and you've probably seen them on the walls inside of, if not your company, other companies, and all of that is absolutely important. But when we say shared values, we're talking about something very specific. We're talking about sharing values. The employees inside of the organization need to share values of the organization. So there's not necessarily one set of shared values that's going to be the best for every organization. Some companies are going to value customer service, and some companies are going to value accountability. If you work for a payday loan company, you're probably going to have a different set of shared values than you do if you work for the Humane Society. But the important point is that to have a good cohesive culture, you need to have a set of shared values. You need to ask yourself the question, do the employees share the same values as the organization? Now, ultimately, this is something that needs to start all the way back in the hiring process. And having values on the walls and having values intermixed within company events and activities is an important part of this. But you need to focus in on the shared values aspect, not just the values themselves. Building block number 2 is what we're going to call language, symbols, and communication. Now, for language, I'll just briefly introduce this concept by talking about the words that you use. Now, think about yourself walking into your organization. Are there acronyms that you might use inside of your organization that people who aren't familiar with your organization are going to have no idea what you're talking about? Do you use the word sprint not to mean running out into the parking lot? Do you use are you in real estate and use a term like FISBO and people don't know any idea what you're talking about? Do you use a term like Java or .NET and somebody looks at you like you're speaking a foreign language? The language inside of every company is a little bit different. When you think about the acronyms or even the specific words that you use inside of your organization, these are all things that ultimately should be part of an introduction and an orientation manual. if you think about the software that you use, there's values that are in drop-down menus that carry a ton of meaning, that if that meaning is not shared within the organization, you're going to have a lack of communication and a lack of understanding. Now, symbols, there's obviously a lot of symbols that we'll use inside of an organization, from things like logos to scorecards and all kinds of different symbols. And communication. The main thing that I want to discuss with communication is the importance of what we'll call assertive and respectful communication. Now, I've seen a lot of people who can communicate very assertively, and I've seen a lot of people who can be very respectful. And acting at the extreme of either one of those two is not necessarily a good thing. When you can combine those two things, be assertive and be respectful, you can expect to get some real serious communication and some real serious progress in terms of the activities that you're trying to accomplish. Building block number 3 is what we'll call rituals and rewards. So rituals is kind of a fun word. I like this word rituals because to me it conjures up images of I don't know, African tribal dances or some sort of like bongos and drums happening. This idea of rituals, we think about it in terms of companies, and you might not think that you've got these kind of rituals, but I'm telling you, maybe you've got a Monday morning sales meeting where people bring in donuts and coffee. Maybe you've got a company party, maybe you've got a President's Club event that the leaders in the sales organization go to every year. Maybe you've got a hackathon that goes all night over the weekend or something that's happening. These are rituals that happen inside your organization. Now, the other part of this is what we'll call rewards. Now, I'll ask the question, are you encouraging the right behaviors? Are you rewarding the right things? We're ultimately, all of us are basically animals. You might have heard the carrot and the stick. I mean, you put the carrot over here, and we're probably going to follow. If you reward a certain behavior, chances are people are going to do that behavior. Now, if people are repeatedly doing that behavior, is it going to get you into the right place? So evaluating the rewards and the incentives that you put in place is an important part of building block number 3. Building block number 4 is what we'll call habits of effectiveness. Another word for this is best practices. What are the things that the most successful, the people who most represent your desired culture inside your organization, what are the things that those people do? What are the habits that the people who are the model citizens inside of your organization, your company culture, what are the things that they are doing? Here, a sample of a few of those things are these people organized? Do they have a certain routine that they do each day or each week? Do they have specific tools that they use for execution? What are those habits? And how do you extract those best practices and share those best practices to perpetuate those habits of effectiveness through your organization? Building block number 4 is habits of effectiveness and identifying those habits inside your organization. Building block number 5 is what we refer to as systems and processes. Inside of your organization, you might, there tends to be some confusion when I use the term systems or processes. Again, it's another word that we've obviously all heard, but when you think about the definition of each one of these, things tend to get a little bit fuzzy. So I like to think of a process with something with a specific start and a specific end to it. So you might have a process that is your customer support resolution process. It starts when a customer complaint comes in and it finishes when there's a successful resolution. You might have a sales process that starts when there's a new lead that's generated and ends when there's a closed sale. So inside of your organization, you're bound to have a lot of different processes. So if you're trying to understand and identify and ultimately change the culture that you have or mold the culture that you have, you're going to want to, one of the things that you're going to want to start with, building block number 5, is going to be to take an inventory of the processes that you have inside your organization. Now, systems can be defined in another way. The simplest way that I can probably describe this to you are the systems are, what are the tools that you use? You might use a piece of software to accomplish a certain process inside of your organization. You might have a certain software for managing the process of customer support resolution. You might have a certain software for managing the process of new lead acquisition from your website. So an inventory of the systems and processes that you have inside your organization, again, are another one of these building blocks that are going to help create, define, mold, and manifest the culture that you have inside of your organization. To learn more about the 5 building blocks of culture, visit planplusonline.com/blog/culture. So sometimes people ask me, what does CRM software have to do with culture? You know, PlanPlus Online, we're in the software as a service, customer relationship management business, and you know, we're talking about culture. What does culture have to do with CRM software? Well, ultimately, when I look at it like this, there is a lot of bad press, let's say bad press, for failed software implementations in general. So what is it that's causing some of these software implementations to work and some of them to fail? I mean, it's the same piece of software. In one organization it works, in this organization it's a multi-million-dollar epic failure. Well, the difference inside these organizations is culture, the culture that is inside of the organization. Earlier I mentioned that the right culture can root out a bad strategy or a bad operating plan, the wrong culture can kill one. So when it comes to the implementation of your CRM software, one of the foundation fundamental principles that we've got to get right, the fertile soil that we've got to get right so that the customer relationship management, business process automation strategy can take hold and grow, is to get the culture right. Now, these 5 building blocks are going to help a company address 5 areas that they need to focus on so that they can have that nice fertile soil, so that they can apply a customer relationship management system or piece of software to a set of well-defined processes so that the organization can act with those habits of effectiveness and communicate effectively, all centered around their core mission statement, their core values that they're going to have inside the organization to be successful. So when we think about successful customer relationship management implementation, a huge percentage of the success formula is the culture of the organization. So that's what we want to do. We want to help you create the right culture to be successful with any product. Ultimately, we hope you choose ours, but getting the culture right is going to help you be successful with a wide variety of systems. At PlanPlus Online, it's our vision to be the leading SaaS provider of culture-centric productivity solutions.